And we're back with another episode of NBA Observations. It's Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much again for joining me right here at NBA Observations, part of the Lakers Fast Break. Truly appreciate. Again, if you can, like and subscribe. Make sure you go ahead and keep in touch with us by subscribing. Hit that notification bell so you go ahead and get the latest notifications on when we go live with a post game. We go live with the Lakers Fast Break special show. When we go live with Lakers Weekend, or right here at NBA Observations. And part of those NBA Observations now on a weekly basis, we get the insight from one of the best that's out there that's doing it, covering the NBA for the J-Notes. It is, of course, Matt John. Matt, great to have you here. The J-Notes, part of the fan-sided experience. I always love to go ahead and just say that. The fan-sided experience right there for you. Great to have you back on the show, my friend.
It's always great to be back, and now that this post-viral infection is finally passing through, I think this time is going to be better than last.
Good. Again, I don't think you did bad last time around. You were great, but I am so glad that you're feeling better. It is getting warmer, so hopefully that's helping a lot of people who are struggling with their health over the course of the winter months, as we all do. They get that flu that just never seemed to shake it until the spring happens. So spring in Las Vegas right now is 99. But we won't discuss that. But again, just great to have you here, my friend. The NBA is coming down to the final 10 games of the season. So I thought we'd discuss some Western Conference activity if we could. And wanted to go ahead and get into the mix as far as the 3rd through 7th spots, because that, like last year, it was very tight. One game separated, or 2 games actually separated several teams last year. And this year, although there is a little bit of separation right now that the Lakers have created with their current 8-game win streak, there still has to be a concern if they falter in those last 10 games, or if something happens or whatnot, they can fall right back into that mix. But they do have the tiebreakers against all the other teams below them except for Phoenix. But right now you have Houston, Denver, and Minnesota all fighting for spots once again. It seems like a repeat of last year all over again.
Yeah, and more importantly, it feels in character for the Western Conference, if you ask me. It's always a bloodbath. It's always like all it takes is just like one good stretch or one bad stretch, and you're right back there. Take the Lakers like a month ago. Everyone was kind of counting them out. Now they go on this hot stretch, and not only are they kind of have the edge, it feels like they're putting it together at the right time compared to, say, a team that's in the same tier as them, like the Rockets, who looked incredible to start the season, but now they're like, who they're missing is like clearly becoming such a problem that I don't think even the fans who root for them are very confident about their chances in the playoffs.
I agree with you. And again, the Lakers going in there in Houston on a back-to-back in Houston and getting decisive victories in the clutch is a great concern for Houston, because the fact that, the Fred VanVleet injury, they put everything into Amen Thompson and Reed Shepherd to fill that gap, to fill that void. And each has great attributes. Reed Shepherd can, stroke it from deep. Amen Thompson, great defender and athleticism, but they just don't have right now in their young careers the ability to still consistently facilitate the offense, to get the ball where it needs to go at the right time on a consistent basis, and especially in the crunch time, when so much now gets put on Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant, you saw, if you scheme on Kevin Durant, as JJ Redick did in those 2 games, it's going to be hard for them to create offense when they need it the most. Alperen Sengun is a great playmaker, no question about it, as far as from his level at the center position. Got 10 assists the game he came back against the Lakers, but it's just not enough. You know that they need, when it comes right down to it, in those final minutes, that type of player that can settle things down and get the offense flowing and where it needs to go.
And more on that, I would say that their struggles are defensible, but with no Van Vliet and no Adams. But I would say them not doing anything about it before the deadline passed, that's inexcusable if you ask me. Like it's clear how much those guys absences really hurt their offense because Fred Van Vliet is definitely a great table setter. He's very good at setting things up. At the same time, all I'm thinking is like, why didn't we really didn't try to address this, like because it was clear, like I guess like more than anything, what bugs me is like as good as Kevin Durant is, he's not really a great playmaker. He's not like, and more importantly, like because he is as good as he is, the strategy is pretty simple on him. Like make someone not named Kevin Durant beat you. And like a guy like Fred Van Vliet, when opponents cover that, he's a guy who can break through that strategy. He's not necessarily an elite player, but he is one of those guys that does multiple things at the same time. So him being out obviously hurts, but all I wonder is why didn't you try to address this? Like because now things are looking as dire as ever. Like take the Celtics for example. Houston beat the crap out of them the first time those two teams faced off. But the next time, where the Celtics were even more undermanned, and while the Rockets were missing some guys too, Boston handled their business pretty easily. Like Ron Harper Jr. beat them. How is that not confirmation? You need to do something. And I guess like above all else, you're not going to have that much time with Kevin Durant. He's in his late 30s, and now the NBA's going to expand. And like rumor has it, they're going to go like Seattle's going to get a team back. If and when they do, I am fairly confident Durant's going to go back there. So you only have so much time with Durant right now. Why aren't you capitalizing on that? That's all I'm wondering.
I can't agree with you more. And again, it's the same thing that I've talked about several times with Luka, and we were talking about how Rob Pelinka during the summer, GM Rob Pelinka didn't do more to address the depth of the entire team. I think that again, in hindsight, he had some good pickups for relatively inexpensive deals that have helped and made contributions. But as we're seeing with the Lakers bench right now, which is even with the game winning streak, it's still a concern because so much is put on the starting lineup to produce points and out and activity. Where is the depth as far as the rest of the team? So yeah, I agree with you. And while he did address some of it a little bit with Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard has struggled as of late. There's just no one off the bench to produce points for the second worst bench in the entire league. Houston is the worst bench in the entire league as far as productivity. So again, it is concerning that for both of these teams, even with the 8 game hot streak for the Lakers, and like you said for Houston, it's concerning that the GMs at the trade deadline didn't to do a little bit more to address those needs.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is what kind of bugs me, like, about when I look back on like when Danny Ainge was running the Big Three Celtics. He was just so concerned about never getting ripped off or overpaying that he hardly ever added good help to the team when they were trying to make their playoff runs, and I think that kind of hurt them. And I think we're seeing this now where teams are a little concerned of like, we might overpay for this useful player. And it's like, yes, that very much could be true. But at the same time, you have a window. There's a championship on the line. Why not add something to this? Like, yeah, they may say you overpaid for this, but doesn't matter because a championship is forever. Like, opposing fans always love to take away from championships that teams win for obvious reasons, but at the same time, they can't take away the title in general. So it is one like I feel like if I were an executive, my mindset would be it doesn't matter if we overpaid. We got someone who got us over the hump. And no matter what the fallout is, it's worth it.
Once again, I'm on with Matt John. Please go ahead and support his great work today at the J Notes, part of the fan sided experience. I always love saying that. But again, it is great having him on here talking about the NBA. And then again, while we're talking about Houston and LA, because that was the marquee matchup with the home both games in Houston type deal as far as that back to back games against Houston, really critical to the Western Conference output. And again, the Lakers in winning now have the advantage, the tiebreaker advantage over Houston Minnesota and Denver, but nobody's talking about Denver at this point in time. Denver has slid. Jokic is still getting those video game numbers. They have Murray in the lineup. They've had in recent days, Saturday, a week ago Saturday, they had their full lineup in there. Have had their full lineup in there. I mean, Gordon is back, Brown is back, or Braun is back. Johnson has been there. Murray's been there. What's going on in Denver? Because they have some real concerns and real issues. I thought they were better built. They had some good pickups in the offseason. Hardaway has not been a bust for them. Great pickup for the minimum coming off the bench. What's gone wrong in Denver so far? They seem to be sliding. Like you talked about the Lakers playing well at the right time. Denver isn't.
They're not, and I think it's kind of one of the downside of when you have so many injuries. Like, and it felt like anytime one Nugget came back, another Nugget went down, or multiple Nuggets would go down. And they are finally getting guys back, and despite the fact that they have experience with each other, continuity is a very precious aspect when it comes to building a winner. And I think that Denver, they are on the clock to build that continuity like before the playoffs begin. I mean, it's on paper they still are an excellently built team, but on paper versus on the court are two different things. And compared to the Lakers, like I'm going to repeat myself here, they looked pretty hopeless not too long ago. Now they're on a hot streak, and I do think it's better now that they are on this hot streak with the playoffs just around the corner. I think that bodes well for them compared to the Nuggets, where it feels like they keep having guys go out, but they are healthier now than they were a little while ago. But at the same time, like it's not translating anything because the lack of continuity on the roster because of those injuries, I think is hurting them. Jokic is Jokic. We'll definitely see like what he can do. Like playoff Jokic is obviously can never be counted out, no matter who he has playing next to him. But I do think like they were my pick for the title, and now I'm really not sure. Like it will really if this keeps going on heading into mid-April, like I will take back that pick.
And I can't say I blame you, but I just don't know what is going wrong with Denver at this point because again, just the way they've been playing, and again, they've been playing without Christian Braun and Aaron Gordon for quite a substantial amount of time. But their lineup in recent days has been closer to complete than at almost any point in time in the season, and they're still losing to teams like the Grizzlies. They're still losing to teams that they shouldn't be losing to. So, yeah, I think it should be a great concern for those in Denver right now because, yeah, I know Aaron Gordon's in and out of the lineup, but still, he has been back. He's been playing. I understand he's a key part of that that combination that's been playing, but I just don't see why they're losing to these teams right now. If that makes sense, especially when it's getting closer to the final 10 games of the season.
Especially losing to the Grizzlies, a team that don't let the record fool you. They may not be worst of the worst, but they've been one of the NBA's worst teams for a few months now. They traded Jaren Jackson Jr. in their efforts to rebuild, and you're losing to them. And what was it at home or was it in Memphis where they lost?
It was in Memphis.
Okay, well, even so, like no John Morant, no JJJ, like Memphis is clearly putting up an emphasis on a retool. So like sure, like teams lose to random players having magnet balls, but at the same time, like when you have one of the league's best players, like you should be able to withstand a magnet ball from the most obscure guys. And so I feel like the Nuggets losing the Grizzlies, that is a big deal that definitely deserves more attention given how late we are in the season.
Well, for them, again, there's some concerns. You have to say there's a lot of concerns because of what's gone on with the NBA and way the Lakers are surging, Oklahoma and San Antonio. We'll get to those two teams in a second here, but Minnesota is the other team. Again, while Houston is 4-6 in their last 10, Denver is 5-5 in their last 10. Phoenix did not take advantage of it. And now Phoenix is a full 6 games behind the Lakers. And at this point, getting the Pacific Division. Even though I don't know really how much the division titles matter at this point, but at this point they're too far behind the Lakers for the division title. But Minnesota is a thing where okay, they've won two in a row. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They were surging this time last month. They were looking like they were going to be the solid. They were going to be looking like the Lakers are looking now as a solid third place team heading into the postseason, and they can still get there, but it's going to be harder work for them in the final 10 games of the season, and especially if Anthony Edwards is in and out of the lineup, especially with what his injuries now are taking place, because that's a big loss for them. What are your thoughts on the Minnesota Timberwolves as it gets closer to the end of the season?
Well, funny enough, they actually did listen to what I said earlier about adding players who could help. I love the Ao Dusunmu addition. I think he definitely helps solve a problem, which is Mike Conley can only play for so much longer. And I even think it's hilarious that they managed to get Mike Conley back even after that, because the NBA tried to stop those kind of things from happening. But anyway, like they are definitely, I would say, like they're kind of in the same. I almost want to say the same ballpark as Denver, where man, like so much, like if they are putting it together at the right time, they are definitely dangerous. But now they're losing Edwards at pretty much the worst time in non-playoffs, I should say. I am looking forward to seeing funny enough, what their matchup would be like against the Lakers, because I do think they are one of the few teams that has the front court depth to take advantage of the Lakers, all due respect. And at the same time, like they are a team where like I don't think they've been as inconsistent as Denver is, but they are one of those teams where it just feels like something is off. They need a little extra oomph to make me feel confident about them in a playoff run. And I say that about a team that made the Western Conference Finals 2 straight years. Probably wouldn't have been the case if Golden State if Steph Curry hadn't gotten hurt. Like I I do wonder if they don't take it a step, if where they finish in the Western Conference playoffs makes me wonder what they will do this offseason, because like if they make the Western Conference Finals again, they may say, okay, we don't it just wasn't our year. We're still right there. We are still just one good series from being going to the NBA Finals. But at the same time, you could also argue, hey, three conference finals appearances and no progress. Why should we keep this team intact? So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they're going to look like when the going gets tough this year.
As am I. And again, a lot of people were starting to count them out this time towards the end of last season. And again, I want to reiterate, remember, 3 through 7, I think, was only separated by 2 games, if memory serves me, as far as Golden State was like 2 games back behind the Lakers, and they had won 48 games. That's okay. So there wasn't that big of a gap between those teams, and it's looking like if the Lakers go on a little bit of a slide heading into the postseason, that could happen again, where they're tightly bunched like that. So I am not discounting what Minnesota, Houston, and Denver are doing at this point in time. So, and you can't, but we'll see. Again, it's all about matchups in the playoffs, all about health as well, to see if the Lakers go in healthy, Minnesota goes in healthy, Edwards comes back, Denver, to see if they've got all their guys. Gordon, who's been in and out of the lineup again upon his return, seeing if he can come back and get things right. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how this lays itself out. But right now, between those third, fourth, fifth, sixth teams, I mean, all the media is a matter of days, Matt. You got to see all the national media, and I'm sure you have now jumped on the Lakers bandwagon after crashing that bandwagon 3 weeks ago for the Lakers. It's interesting, and it's just the way it is, because they were in sixth place. They were a game out of the play-in, and I can't say I blame them, but all it takes is one hot streak to get back in everyone's favor.
Yeah, and I mean,
How
it's
real is it? How real is it what you see with the Lakers right now? I'm interested in your opinion on that.
Well, that's the funny part is that they looked pretty good when the season first started, and then LeBron came back and that kind of threw them out of whack, and that was really odd to me. Like, so it's like LeBron, I feel like is finally transitioning towards I'm not a star anymore, but I'm a guy who can still just elevate so much about your team, even if I'm not, putting up the same numbers that I used to. Like, it's like I mean, when I found out that they got smart, I was like, oh, he's perfect. Like that's a guy who, warts and all, he gets your team, he gets their butts in gear and makes them play at the best possible level they can. I love the Aiden pick. It seems like he's playing a lot better. I do think he is kind of an X factor. If he's the guy who says they brought me in to be Clint Capella, and clearly, how do I say clearly pouting about his role, then
Yes.
obviously that's going to hurt. But if he's 2021 Aiton, like I do wonder what is stopping this team from making some real noise in the Western Conference. So if he can continue putting it together, continue to build off of this, like it's I think the Lakers, they might be more legit than we thought, but we can't discount their struggles before they went on this hot streak.
And I agree with you on DeAndre Ayton. He said recently after the game he had an inner look at himself. He looked in the mirror and said, you know, I think that where he wanted to be or where he thought he was, because he's always thought himself as the number one draft pick. He always thought himself as the next Shaq, the next dominating center in the league. He's always thought of himself in that context. And he was about a month ago when he after a game where he thought, okay, I'm not Clint Capella. That's that. Unfortunately, at this point in his career or who he is, he has to become a Clint Capella, where he's playing a supporting role, but providing a lot of the things that the Lakers need: rebounding, rim protection, et cetera, and being available for those lobs inside. That's who he has to be. That's who he has to be for this team. And I think that conversation with himself, although scary as it may be, still, it's just what he needed to do to come to grips. For lack of a better term, come to Jesus moment for him, where has to understand there that's exactly who he is at this point. If he wants to stay in the league, he was not going to be that superstar NBA first team all league center that people thought he would be when he was drafted number one. He is a supporting role character right now, and that's probably what he's going to be for the rest of his career.
Yeah, and more, I think his story with the Lakers kind of shows that basketball isn't played in a vacuum. Like you bring in someone who has put up numbers, but it's been a while since he's last proven himself to be an effective basketball player. Asking him to be not necessarily Clint Capella, but more of a, a supplementary player on a team that's like what, regardless of what their odds are, clearly trying to win a title with
Yeah.
Luka and LeBron and Reeves. Like it isn't that easy to just adjust to that role. Like we've seen success stories in the past, and that makes fans misunderstand. Oh, it'll be that easy to take a lesser role. And I was like, no, it's not. These guys are so used to being the creme de la creme, the top of the pecking order or around the top. Aiton
Ego.
was
It's a lot about ego, right?
like Aiton was that in Phoenix. And it's also funny because it's not like he's old or anything. He's still relatively young. So I mean, asking him to take that kind of role, that is not very easy to do, and especially in a prove it year. But like that's the one thing is that this is his chance to kind of redeem his value, and it's kind of been up and down, and right now it's up. So if he, I think if he continues to put this together, continues to build off of his most recent stretch, I do think that that could be enough to convince a team. Yeah, if we want to win something, we want DeAndre Ayton on our team. So it's not easy, but when it works, it's spectacular. So I think Ayton not necessarily hasn't necessarily been spectacular, but he's on the up and up, and I think that's huge for the Lakers.
We don't need him as spectacular on the Lakers. We just need him solid. We need
Yeah.
to count on him for 4 quarters. Now, some of those games that he's shown up at, he doesn't show up till the fourth quarter, or in the case of Denver, he didn't show up until overtime. But Games like last night in Miami, he was okay. He was solid. Houston, that second game in Houston, he was solid throughout the four quarters. That first game in Houston, he was out Clint Capella by Clint Capella until the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game where he decided to make some really key plays. Again, we just need a solid effort for four quarters. And that's what we need. And especially he is, with all apologies to Jackson Hayes, who has been up until past week, really a great thing for the Lakers as far as coming off the bench. His improved play has been a great thing as far as one of the few bright spots for this bench, the NBA, for the Lakers bench. And it's been nice, but he is not going to be able to be the guy that's going to stop a Victor Wembanyama or a Chet Holmgren in a series. It has to be a DeAndre Ayton. It's just is what it is. I mean, Hayes will give you hopefully some good minutes when it counts, but for the bulk of those minutes, it has to be DeAndre Ayton stepping up and playing at a solid level. I'm not asking for to match number by numbers with Holmgren or Wembanyama or Jokic, but just to defend Jokic like he did in that overtime on Saturday, and to do that same, have that same kind of effort against Wembanyama and Holmgren in the playoffs as well.
And I think you're harping on something that needs to be said. He is an X factor. Like the Lakers, I'm going to say it. They were embarrassed last year, and it was
Oh yeah,
because
yeah, you could say it.
they went up against a Timberwolves team that knew how to exploit their one hole, their front court. It was weak. Like they were depending on Dorian Finney-Smith for back of five. And granted, I really wish that he had stayed with the Lakers. I think he would have been very useful. Like Ayton really will be like, I think the difference between, if all goes right, he can be the difference between the Lakers getting embarrassed in the first round and going all the way to the Western Conference Finals. I won't go as far as to say the NBA Finals, but the Lakers are putting it together at the right time, so I won't rule that out either. But I do think Ayton is the X factor for what happens with the Lakers in the playoffs.
Once again, it is, of course, Matt John. Please go ahead and support what we're doing today right here for him at the J Notes, at thejnotes.com, part of the fan-sided experience. Speaking of the Western Conference, as we get into the final 10 games, the Oklahoma City Thunder and San Antonio Spurs, I think, have established themselves as the clear 1-2. At this point, I don't see any change between those two. As much as San Antonio would like to be in that number one spot, they're just too far behind. 3 games to a team that has won 10 in a row. I don't, yeah, I just don't see it happening, especially with Oklahoma City starting to get a little bit healthy, back getting closer to the end of the season. And San Antonio is just still trying to make sure that they find their mojo. They're not any slouches. They won 9 of 10 as well. So again, those two teams are setting themselves apart right now as far as that 1 and 2 seeds. But so what do you do in the final 10 games if you're at that level? What do you do in preparation for a long one, especially if you're in San Antonio? Because San Antonio, I know so much has been already said, and Matt, you're going to hear this ad nauseum about the inexperience for San Antonio, the inexperience for San Antonio, the inexperience for San Antonio. You're gonna hear those words ad nauseum going forward. I'm not buying 100% into it. I have to see it because, well, okay, Castle, Harper, yes, they're young guards, but they play with such energy and great on the defensive end. They've got Fox that has a little bit of postseason. You've got Harrison Barnes that is one with the Warriors, but Wembanyama again seems like that transcendent player. This is what he wanted. This is what he wanted for this team. He did not want to wait on the San Antonio timeline and how they wanted to go. He wanted to go ahead and say, I want to win now. I don't care what your agenda is, San Antonio. I want to win now. So maybe that he pushed for the De'Aaron Fox trade. Maybe that's what he did. So he wanted to win now. And this organization has said, you know what? We're going to agree with you. We're going to back you up. And they have exceeded expectations. But Victor Wembanyama just seems to have that psyche by what he says and what he does that may kind of say, okay, maybe don't have the playoff experience, but I'm just going to go out there and play some ball, and I'm going to see what happens next. He just seems like he's going to go all into the playoffs and not be taking a step back in the spotlight.
it really is a shame that he went out early last season because I would have loved to see how they would have fared right then and there. It could have given us a better glimpse into what they'll look like in the playoffs. And at the same time, they got Dylan Harper because of that. So it's not like the Spurs are really complaining about their fate in that regard. I'm very much because I have talked to a couple Spurs fans, in the fan sided community, and they have said straight up, don't buy the whole they don't have experience thing. And I very much have the I'll believe it when I see it sort of mindset. But I do think that San Antonio is lethal, not just because of Wembanyama, but because of the core that they built around him. They built, multiple guys who can score, multiple guys who can do other things. They quickly built that, and that's actually pretty impressive. Watching the Celtics go up against them, actually something that Boston did that I think other teams will use is even though like they used Luka, they quickly inserted Luka Garza, who is has been pretty amazing, or I should say, has given the Celtics more than their money's worth with him. But the reason why they inserted him so quickly for Neemias Queta is he's a floor spacer. Like he made a three, like immediately once he was inserted in, and so I do think that other teams are going to see and they're going to say, okay, we need 5 out versus the Spurs. And like the Celtics were right there, despite Jaylen Brown getting kicked out, like with still over half the game to go, and still gave the Spurs everything they could. So I do think, and it's because for every Wembanyama minute there was, they always had floor spacers on the floor. So I do think that the Spurs are going to be a little tougher than people think, despite their lack of experience. But I also think teams are going to say we want dragging Wembanyama out of the post. That changes everything for San Antonio. As I would love to see a Spurs versus Thunder series. I would love to see a Spurs versus Nuggets series because I think Jokic is going to give Wemby all he can handle. I would love to see two basketball titans going right up against each other and starting a new rivalry. And funny thing is, Jokic isn't old, but it's one of those the guy that's been there versus the guy that could be there. I can't wait to see that, and I hope we get that.
I couldn't agree with you more. As a fan, I would be intent to watch that because, I'm a fan of Wembanyama's game. Saw him back since he first came to this country and played in right a suburb of Las Vegas. His first game here in the States, and I have just been in awe of what he can do out there in the basketball court. And I'm just not going to underestimate him. Again, I'm not going to. He guy with that much raw talent is going to be something. And you're right. The more you can draw him away on defense, the less effective he might be. And I know that's saying something because he still falls in love with the jump shot and still falls in love with the three, maybe more than some people like. And he doesn't play inside as much as people like, but still, he is averaging some gaudy numbers. And as we'll go into his second, it just again, I want to see what they want to do as far as San Antonio is concerned. They are OKC and San Antonio are going to put some guys on rest. They're going to rest some guys. They're going to go ahead and prep for the playoffs. I get that. I understand it. I'm looking forward to seeing how they're going to map them out. I have a feeling that San Antonio is going to feed a lot off of Harrison Barnes and his knowledge and his experience because he's been there. He's been there multiple times, and he has to be that voice in the locker room and to help guide these kids going forward. And I think that having him there could be a possible key to their success.
And I'm actually really happy that he gets another chance. Like it's been a decade since he last got a chance. Like he's had a solid NBA career since leaving the Warriors, but never. I don't. I think he's been to the playoffs once, and I think that was with the Kings 3 years ago. And
Mhm.
he's not what he was even then. But I'm just glad that he's finally gotten that chance to kind of rise above it. Especially, I almost kind of see from his perspective of like while he and the Spurs are rising, the Warriors are falling, and it looks like this free fall is not slowing down anytime soon. So how nice is that for him to kind of get the last laugh on them on the NBA team of tomorrow with San Antonio? So yeah, I completely agree that Barnes is going to be so useful in the locker room, but I'm also just so glad that Barnes, in a way, kind of got the last laugh on Golden State.
I'm going. Actually, before we finish the season, hopefully next week you and I can touch on the Phoenixes, the Portlands, the Clippers, and the Golden State Warriors as far as I want that conversation for next week if we can, if I remember it. And please let's go into detail about those teams. In fact, with Golden State about the end of an era. So or is it an end of an era? We'll go ahead and talk about that because a lot of things may happen in the off season for them. So that's going to be a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to it. Before we head on out, though, I was asking you before we went on the show if we could go ahead and start talking about the MVP again because of course it's easy to say for us here at the Lakers because Luka has had one of the best stretches uh, in the past week to 10 days of his entire NBA career. There's no question about Western Conference Player of the Week. And then he tops it off with a fantastic game, two fantastic games in Houston. And then less than 24 hours later, pops a 60 note on the Miami Heat. So he has firmly planted him in the back into the MVP conversation. He was as low as sixth. I know that Lakers fans find it hard to believe, but when the Lakers were sixth and he was doing okay, he's still leading the league in scoring. He was doing good, but not eye-poppingly as good as he was at the start of the season. People were starting to have him down and thinking of him as an afterthought. DraftKings had him sixth in the betting, and Las Vegas here in the hotels, the casinos. I can tell you they had him sixth in as far as the odds are concerned. But that has all dynamically changed with his recent run of him and the Lakers. And I said, I don't know if I said to you, but I did say on this show and in the post games definitively, you guys are upset about Luka not being mentioned higher in the MVP standings. That will change if the narrative changes for the Lakers. If the Lakers get up to third in the Western Conference, that will change. Lo and behold, 2 weeks later, that's exactly what's happened. Tell me now your thoughts about what the MVP race looks like as we get close to the end of the season.
Well, I also think what shouldn't be discounted about Luka's MVP case is that the Lakers did a lot better than many expected when LeBron James had sciatica and had to miss what 10, 15 games.
Mhm.
Like that shouldn't be discounted. And him coming back kind of how do I say this? It put things in disarray, and you can argue that that wasn't necessarily Luka's fault. It was just trying to fit LeBron, who's also trying to play for a new deal since he'll be an unrestricted free agent. So I do think that Luka's case is maybe even stronger than people give it credit for. If you ask me, I do think if it continues to go well, he will solidly be third in the MVP race. Not because of anything he has failed to do, but because I would put Shea at number one because of how good OKC has been despite all the injuries they've had throughout the season. I think, and what Shea did, I think he just broke Wilt's record for most consecutive games with 20-point scoring performances. That's phenomenal. And the Thunder still being good despite missing Jalen Williams for a good chunk of the season. I think they're missing Hartenstein for a good chunk of the season. Like still looking as dominant even without those guys for stretches. That is insane. I do think it's his to lose. Number two I would say is probably Wemby because I think no one thought the Spurs would put it together this quickly. So I do think that voters are definitely going to have him number two. But I do think with all the injuries that have happened in the 65 game rule, as long as Luka meets that requirement, how far away is he from meeting the 65 game
I
rule?
think he could sway by 3. I think he can sway by 3. So he should make it if he stays out there. I mean, he played yesterday after 20 for less than 24 hours. So I think that's clearly on his mind right now.
I think if the Lakers finish the season at number three and Luka keeps this hot stretch up, I think he will firmly be third in the MVP race.
And it also goes without saying, Craig, who's one of our followers who watches all of our stuff, including this show, appreciate Craig you putting out there as a longtime Lakers fan. He noted that Lucas had no technicals at 8 games. Funny, Matt. How long has been the Lakers winning streak? I wonder.
And that bodes well for the playoffs because I do think one of Luka's flaws is how often he does get distracted by non-calls, and I do think that holds his team back. That's going to get worse in the playoffs because refs don't call that. Like they refuse to call that even more. I'll say this: Jason Tatum used to have this problem. He used like when the Celtics made their finals run in 2022. I wanted to make a drinking game out of how many times Tatum would complain about an on-call. The opponent would score like so easily because it was 4-on-5 because Tatum would be like, hey, why'd you miss that? but he grew out of it. And that's something that kind of goes unmentioned, unnoticed with the Celtics is Tatum will be like, hey, but he won't, pout. Like he won't be standing there being like, you missed the call. He will get back, even though he thinks you missed the call. So for the Lakers' sake, I hope Luka has that same kind of mentality of, yes, they missed it. Get back. Like, I just got to get back because if I don't, my team's gonna be worse off for it. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed. And the injury to Cade Cunningham with a collapsed lung, that's a killer. And because he not only has, okay, it's not just like it's an ankle injury or an arm injury where he can just come back and get pretty much up to full speed right away. It's going to be a period of reconditioning because you have to recondition that lung again to perform the way it once did not too long ago. So that's going to be tough for them going forward. And then you also have, of course, is what you're talking about with Jaylen Brown, but Jason Tatum coming back might be the best thing for the Celtics, but also might be the worst thing for his MVP chances as well.
Man, I mean, I don't think. I mean, I I didn't think Brown's MVP chances were necessarily that strong. I mean, it's just by matter of I think voters just as impressive as he's been, and I do think that he's played well enough to get legitimate first team consideration. Like I do think that voters kind of hold against him of just like, listen, you only play this well because Tatum is out. I it's hard for me to formulate. Like Brown has been awesome. He's also been a little inconsistent. He's actually been a lot better lately. He had a stretch where he wasn't really all too great, and even so, the Celtics didn't really suffer much from it. And I do think that the smart people who vote for MVP will look at that and say the fact that the Celtics did well despite Brown's numbers kind of taking a hit for a time kind of shows that their success was more of a team-oriented thing more than it was a Jaylen Brown thing. I hate saying that because Brown has been awesome, and he's been more awesome lately, especially since Tatum has come back. And I do think that he has played well enough that, like, I don't think people should be mad if he is first team. At the very least, he is going to make an All NBA team, and he's going to deserve it when he does.
Before we head on out, I wanted to go ahead and talk about the last guy that's still considered on this list. This guy was actually during a period of time this year, he was actually considered at the top spot or near the top spot on this list, and Nikola Jokic. He's still averaging a triple double, Matt. And we're now talking to him like he's in fifth or sixth place, and it's as an afterthought. It's sad in a way. Joe Sorrell and I, one of my co-hosts, my main co-host on the Lakers Fast Break post games, we talk about him in such glowing review. People were mad at us over the summer because of he was not playing as well in the Euro League, and we just said, this is the Euro League. He is the definitive player this decade. Okay, if you talked about right now, if the decade stopped right now, who is the best player this decade? I don't know how you could choose against Nikola Jokic because you seriously you can't. And he's still averaging a triple double, and we're now treating him as an afterthought. And that's because we have to right now because, like I've said, these voters base on their votes on narrative. And with Luka, people were upset about, oh, he's leading the league in scoring. He's averaging 30, 33, 9, and 9. Doesn't matter if the Lakers are in sixth place. They only gave Russell Westbrook sixth place because he had achieved that triple double status for one of the first times in a long time since Oscar Robertson, and just okay, that was a different narrative then. But the narrative right now seems to be about placing a high amount on winning teams and the players that lead them. And right now, he's leading them to a sixth place standings in the Western Conference. And the narrative isn't good for Nikola Jokic right now, no matter how many video game numbers he's putting up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I'm trying to think of what fuels that. I think it's just been Denver's struggles. I think what also works against him is many thought, oh, Denver finally they have a core around him, much like they did back when they won the title. Like, oh yeah, this is totally going to be an off the rail season from him. And because the season has somewhat gone off the rails in a bad way, I think that people are going to hold that against him. Maybe it's voter fatigue. Like, it's funny that I just don't think of it, but I think it's just because think everyone thought Denver was going to be better than this. They were going to they. It's not their fault they've had kind of an injury plagued season. But at the same time, the fact that they haven't endured as well with guys out, or even when they've come back, I think that is going to be held against Jokic. And especially because I do think voter fatigue is definitely a thing, and I do think that voters are kind of ready to say, all right, someone not Jokic is dominating the league for once, because he dominated from 2020 to 2025. Like he's still like, if he wins more titles, there I think he could start. He could definitely put himself among like best of the best conversation. I do think he is like the single most dominant player. But I do think this year, watching the Celtics take off the Thunder and Shea beat every coverage the Celtics gave him, like I do think Shea has proven, no, I'm right up there. It's no longer a sure thing that it's no longer a widely agreed upon stance that Jokic is the most dominant player. I am right there with him. Granted, he won the MVP last year, but I do think this year it's been like, no, that wasn't a fluke. I'm right there.
And with that, the decisions will be made here in the coming days. But again, it looks like another good race for the MVP. But with Wemby, with Luka, with Shea, with Brown, with Jokic, and Cunningham, it's going to be very interesting to see. But before we head on out, please let us know what's going on with your work on the J Notes for the fan-sided experience.
All right. Well, as we know, the Jazz stink, but anyone who's paying attention to them knows that it's going to be a whole lot different. So we're focusing on draft coverage, and we're focusing on this coming off season, and of course, the excellent season that's sure to come. As much as we talked about some of the best West playoff teams, don't be surprised if the Jazz are right up there with them. And be sure to check out the J Notes when they make that leap.
It's being the guy that's on the inside with the Utah Jazz. Can you let us know how that illness for Bryce Sensabaugh was? Was he so ill after his 41-point performance that he could not play? So terrible that illness happened the next night.
Well, I am sure that certain strings were pulled. Like I'm very very confident about Sensabaugh, but I do think the Jazz are kind of pulling out all the stops to make sure they don't have the worst case scenario this year. Worst case scenario being they lose their pick. They
still won. They still won, Matt.
And to me, that says a lot more about the Bucks than it does the Jazz. Like, oh my gosh, they are so hopeless. And like, why Giannis stuck around, I don't know. But that's another thing I'm looking forward to this offseason when this breakup finally happens, if it happens. But yeah, like the Jazz, like this next month is going to be pretty painful because they are going to do everything they can to lose however many games they can. But everyone knows that there's a light at the end of the tunnel for them, and that's all that matters.
Once again, it is Matt John. He scored 41, and then you've got a fever, Bryce. Okay, you're too hot. You're too hot from deep. There you go. It is Bryce Sensabaugh for the Jazz. It just went out, but if you had him on your fantasy team, there you go. I'll just leave it at that to close out your season. But it is, of course, Matt John. Go ahead and check him out today at the JNotes, thejnotes.com. Right, part of the fan-sided experience. Matt, it's great to have you back. I do want to have more discussions, like I said, on the other teams in the play-in mix and on next week's show, and some other good thoughts around the NBA. But any last thoughts before we head on out?
Well, I mean, I'm trying off the top of my head. I can't really think of anything. I mean, I do, like, I'll just say this, like Jason Tatum's return, I think has gone about as perfectly as the Celtics could have hoped. He looks like Tatum. He definitely looked like he needed a minute when he first came back, but that game against Golden State, he was making his threes, the only thing that wasn't working out. And besides that, I think like when many thought, oh, he might disrupt their flow, it's been anything but that. And him getting back to his old self is bad news for the rest of the league.
It is, and especially in the Eastern Conference, and now that has firmly put them. I'm going to be honest with you. When I looked at the odds the other day for Vegas here, and also DraftKings, they're the number one in the East right now. They're expected to go ahead and move on in the East, and it's not surprising indeed. But again, Matt, great to have you here. Looking forward to our conversation. If you're available next week, I know your work is is plentiful at the J Notes, but I'm looking forward to seeing if you can squeeze in some time for some NBA observations with us right here at the Lakers Fast Break
Most definitely.
podcast. Yeah, anytime, my friend. Anytime.